What is up, guys? Welcome back. We got another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show for you guys tonight. We're going to be doing the post-game notes from week number 10. We're going to go through each game, give you guys kind of the snaps, the routes, the fantasy usage, and let you guys know if we learned anything or if we need to make any adjustments, that kind of stuff. So we're hanging out here for a little bit. We're going to start with one of the worst Thursday night football games that I've seen in quite some time. The Raiders and the Broncos here. Not a fun one to start off week 10. Geno Smith, still the starting quarterback. He got beat up pretty good in this one. Jacoby Myers is out of the picture, so we saw Trey Tucker run every single route and play every single snap. He is the true number one wide receiver for this team. We saw Dante Thornton work in as the number 3. Tyler Lockett technically was the number 2 receiver, and he actually led the team in receptions and targets on the day. So if you need a disgusting pickup, I suppose Tyler Lockett could be for you. And then we saw Jack Besh finally get something, but he's the number 4 receiver here. He's behind Lockett. He's behind Thornton. Not interested in Jack Besh at the moment. Brock Bowers, 50 out of 60 snaps, 29 out of 35 routes. He's still playing a lot, which I like, but only 2 targets on the day, 1 rushing attempt. It just was not a great day for Brock Bowers. 3.7 fantasy points. Just the Raiders as a whole, it was a pretty rough game. Ashton Jeanty still got the touchdown, which was nice, and he was really the only useful piece. So what did we learn from the Raiders? Their offensive line is not in good shape. I believe they lost their first-round pick for the season as well with the high ankle sprain. You're going to keep starting Jeanty and Brock Bowers. You're going to think about Trey Tucker. You can maybe add, again, Tyler Lockett, Dante Thornton, but I just don't know if I'm going to care at any point for this Raiders team as it's slowly starting to lose the season here. I do want to see Kenny Pickett at some point, I guess. At some point, right? We got to see what he can do. The Broncos really did not play well at all either. Troy Franklin was the high fantasy point man with 15 PPR points, 5 catches, a team high 9 targets. He's still at the number 2 receiver here. With 27 out of 31 routes. I think Franklin is a solid wide receiver 3 flex. He has been for some time, and he continues to lead this team in targets. Frustrating day for Sutton, frustrating day for Harvey. J.K. Dobbins did get dinged up in this one. We're going to watch for his health on Wednesday with that practice report. But overall, the Broncos just really struggled in general against a bad Raiders team. So that was frustrating to see. The tight ends are a mess. Evan Ingram still 23 out of 31 routes was nice, but only 5 targets, 2 catches. Just nothing really was happening here. Dobbins did start to get some movement later in the game with his 18 carries, but they just did not have a good offensive day. Bo Nix struggled throughout. I'm willing to kind of just chalk this up as a bad game for the Broncos, a bad tune-up, though, for the Chiefs coming into town week 11. I think we're going to wait and see what's up with this J.K. Dobbins injury. We might be looking at R.J. Harvey as the lone starting back, but we'll have to wait and see what happens on Wednesday practice here. But I think you're starting Troy Franklin. You can keep starting Courtland Sutton. And then we're going to watch the running backs. I think I'll have Bo Nix as like a fringe QB1 in week 11. So we didn't really learn anything new. I did like what Pat Bryant did, though. He had that nice big play that was really their biggest play of the game, the Pat Bryant 43-yard catch. So Broncos, they got the win. Short week. They get an extra couple days rest. Good for them. Let's take a look here at the Berlin game here. This was a fun back and forth game. We got a little bit of overtime juice here. The Falcons, Drake London continues to assert his dominance, playing every single route, leading the team with 6 catches. That was pretty much it. Nobody else really caught the ball. Mooney had 1 catch on 8 wasted targets. Kyle Pitts had 2 catches on 5 targets. He dropped an opening drive, 60-some yard touchdown, which would have been sweet, but he ends up dropping that. Just a floor game for Kyle Pitts. Tyler Algier, I think he had the 2 rushing touchdowns in this one. I can't recall. Bijan Robinson, you get a floor game. Michael Penix, just the super flex numbers here. It's a good opponent, Indianapolis, but pretty frustrating result unless your name was Tyler Algier or Drake London. So Falcons, still not sure if this team is good. I think they're getting the Panthers this week, so we're probably going to like that matchup. And yeah, keep starting Bijan, keep starting London. Kyle Pitts is still a low-end tight end 1 option for you if you need it. And then Penix, just a super flex thought. I'm probably cool with dumping Darnell Mooney. I did like that he got 8 targets, but him and Penix don't really quite have that chemistry going right now that I'm looking for. The Colts, mean, it's Jonathan Taylor MVP season, man. 32 rushing attempts. He gets 3 rushing touchdowns, almost puts up the 50 burger in full PPR. He's playing as he's kind of the fantasy MVP right now. We'll see if he can be the real life NFL MVP. He has to keep this going, which we'll see. Alec Pierce, the other high point man today, he continues to lead this team in a lot of major categories. 18.4 PPR points in this one, has the big touchdown, has a couple other big catches in this one. He's becoming someone that I trust as a wide receiver 3 flex. Finally, a good Tyler Warren game after being quiet for the last maybe month or so. But he ends up with almost 100 yards receiving on 8 catches, about 18 fantasy points there. And Daniel Jones does enough in a super flex league. So we didn't really learn anything about the Colts. We just know we can kind of trust Alec Pierce now. We're going to keep trusting JT and Tyler Warren. Michael Pittman loses a little bit of steam here. He's going to still be a nice wide receiver too. And then Josh Downs kind of still the clear number 3, which is nice, but he's just not really productive enough for us to care consistency-wise. But big win for the Colts there. The Saints upset the Carolina Panthers. This one was a great game from Tyler Shuck. Ends up with about 19 fantasy points. I think he ended up throwing 2 touchdowns in this one, 1 to Olave, 1 to Jawan Johnson. We got a little Alvin Kamara action, 22 rushing attempts, 3 catches on the day, 14.5 PPR points. 25 Kamara touches. That's a very rare thing for him in the 2025 season. Devin Neal remains the backup running back here. He did have 4 rushing attempts and caught 3 passes as well. I think he could be stashed for the long term. But a little bit of life here. This is one of those wins where you can go on the road in the division with a rookie quarterback making a second career start. And, this team just traded away Rashid Shaheed and made a couple other moves at the deadlines. This is a team that needed something positive to go their way and kind of install some confidence in them. And I think Tyler Shuck, not saying he's a great player or anything yet, but this is what you want to see from a young player, make a really big second career start and get the win for them on the road against a division opponent. So I like that. Chris Olave was his favorite target, 7 targets on the day to lead the team, 4 receptions, 19 PPR points for Olave. We had the chatter on Devon Vele being more involved. He led the team in snaps and routes. So didn't really lead to fantasy success. He did only have 3 targets, but he caught one of them, 2.5 points. He's just a name to kind of keep in deep formats. He's going to be on the field more than Cooks, more than the other guys. And technically he's on the field more than Olave, more than Kamara. Like, he was the guy that was on the field the most for them yesterday. So I think opportunity will come for him. We just got to, hold on to him. They have a bye week next week though. So that's a little unfortunate if you want to stash him, but you're going to keep starting Olave. Jawan Johnson remains a tight end 1 at this point. He only had 4 catches on 4 targets, but one of them was the big clinching touchdown at the end of the game. Not really throwing to the other tight ends, but Moreau gets his opportunities. Taysom Hill gets some opportunities, things like that. This team ran the ball a lot yesterday, playing from a lead most of the day. So good game from the Saints. You're going to keep starting Olave, Kamara, consider Jawan Johnson, and then definitely think about Shuck in Superflex leagues after the bye. Pretty ugly day from the Carolina Panthers. Rico Dowdle gets you a touchdown, which is nice. You get your 15 PPR points. Ted McMillan gets to 11 fantasy points in full PPR. You think you're okay with that. Tommy Tremble, I actually have that on the wrong slide there. I always have at least 1 or 2 errors throughout this thing. But Tommy Tremble runs a lot of snaps, doesn't get a lot of routes. Jatavian Sanders doesn't get a lot of either of them, but he did get targeted 5 times on his 11 routes. So he's still kind of the lead receiving tight end. Not going to really care about it for fantasy though. This for fantasy, it's Rico, and then you can keep flexing McMillan. It's nice to see Coker getting opportunities out there, but only 3 targets on a game where they were losing from pretty much the entire start. And then Bryce Young, man, it's hard to trust him in a super flex even right now. So pretty ugly letdown here from the Panthers after going to Green Bay and getting a big win there. Keep starting Rico, McMillan, but otherwise don't have a lot of confidence in those Carolina Panthers. The New York Giants, Chicago Bears, we'll be quick with this one. Jackson Dart leaves with a concussion, ends up basically handing over the keys to Russell Wilson, who loses the game, isn't able to complete enough passes and get the touchdown there at the end to clinch it. Dart with the concussion, I'm assuming he's not going to play week 11. I believe this is his third or fourth concussion that he's been checked for this season. So that's not looking good. They fire the head coach, Brian Daboll, today. That's not looking good. Tyrone Tracy leads the team in running back snaps and routes. He gets 14 rushing attempts, 2 targets, 1 catch, 8 PPR points, but it was Devin Singletary who ended up with the 10 PPR points. He catches 3 passes and he gets 8 rushing attempts. I think both guys are, low-end RB2 flex plays right now. If Russell Wilson's out there, I'm going to not be super interested in these running backs. Wan'Dale Robinson did play pretty much every snap and route. He led the team with 10 targets, 6 catches on the day, 12 fantasy points. And he could have had a bigger day, just missing on a few plays. He did have a play or 2 called back from a penalty that I noticed. So you're going to keep starting Wan'Dale in a full PPR format, even if it is Russ Bus Wilson out there. And then Darius Slayton, big play, 4 catches, 4 targets, 13 fantasy points. You'll take that if you started him as your flex. And then we're not going to care about these other receivers. Theo Johnson remains pretty steady, though. 8 targets, 7 catches, 14.5 fantasy points. He is one of the preferred targets for Jackson Dart. And I don't know, like if Jackson Dart's out next week, like we kind of want to see Jameis Winston out there before Russell Wilson. Wilson is just not doing it for his other pieces on this offense for fantasy. So we have to learn a lot about the Dart situation this week. If it's Wilson, I'm going to be more pessimistic. If it's Jameis, like we at least have a chance to get there with Wan'Dale, Slayton, and Theo and some of the running backs, but we'll temper our expectations for the Giants as they're going to be hosting Green Bay next weekend. Chicago Bears, just another crazy comeback win. They looked pretty sluggish for the first half of this game. They were trailing most of it. Jackson Dart was just doing so well, running the ball and hitting his passes. But Caleb makes the comeback here, 25 fantasy points for him. He's playing like a low-end QB1. And when he gets those rushing lanes, he's not afraid to take them. DeAndre Swift came back, looked really good doing so. 14.7 fantasy points here. I missed the Kyle Monangai fantasy points, but he did score a touchdown. They're going to continue. I think this is kind of what they want to do. And Swift had a lot of targets in this one, 7 targets, 13 rushing attempts. That's 20 combined opportunities. I think he's going to be somewhere in that 15 to 20 opportunities per game. They want to keep Monangai somewhere around 10 opportunities per game. I think that makes sense from an expectation standpoint. Swift will continue to be a running back 2 for me. And then Monangai will be a running back 3 flex if you need him. Odunze had a big game, catches a touchdown, 6 catches on 10 targets. Clear wide receiver 1 on the day here, 20.6 fantasy points again. DJ Moore, 4 targets in this one. He did get hurt and came back, I think, but a goose egg from DJ Moore. Olamide Zaccheaus still the clear number 3 in routes and snaps, but Luther Burden caught up a little bit here, made some ground up on him. 3 targets, 3 big catches for 8.1 fantasy points. And then Cole Kmet established himself as like the tight end 1 in terms of snaps. They split routes almost 50-50 though. Loveland though made the much bigger plays. He had 4 catches on his 4 targets for 56 yards. So Loveland, I'm hoping he can stay as 4 to 5, 6 targets per game and eventually be a must start tight end 1 for us. But as long as Kmet's there, it's going to cap his ceiling quite a bit in terms of snaps and routes. So Bears, this is a pretty healthy offense right now. You want to be playing your Bears if you got them. I'm not going to take too much from this one. Buffalo Falls here. They pretty much just didn't show up to this one. They were trailing from the beginning and just never could get into this game until they scored some garbage stuff in the fourth quarter. Dalton Kincaid got hurt. They're calling him week to week. So you're going to see Dawson Knox and Jackson Hawes take on the workload for the tight ends. I don't know if any of these guys are going to be startable. I suppose it would be Dawson Knox if I want to pick up a tight end here. But this is a huge blow. He was like, Kincaid made a couple big plays for them early in this game. And then it kind of had to go to Shakir and Keon Coleman. We know Keon Coleman's going to be pretty boomer bust and inconsistent with his targets, but he did get the touchdown in this one. Shakir just rock steady in a full PPR league. That's what you want to see. So keep starting Shakir. We might think about Coleman just because he's going to be the clear number 2 target next weekend against Tampa Bay. And then, you're still starting James Cook. You're still starting Josh Allen. Just didn't really learn a lot from this team. And now we're kind of without Kincaid here, makes me just a little bit nervous about the Bills. Hopefully they can get him back soon. Dolphins, this was all Devon Achane. We don't really need to talk much about anything else. Jalen Waddle looked good, though. Malik Washington looked good. The tight end it's it's Greg Dulcich, tight end 1 for the Miami Dolphins. He did have 3 targets, only caught one of them, but if you guys play in really deep leagues or want to pick up somebody that has a chance to make some noise, it could be Greg Dulcich for you rest of the year. And then we knew Ollie Gordon was dealing with an ankle issue coming into this one. So Jalen Wright ended up playing more snaps, ran the ball 5 times. Ollie Gordon only got 1 touch. So we'll see. And Jalen Wright did look okay on some of his plays. So we'll continue to watch Jalen Wright and see if he's going to overtake Ollie Gordon back for the RB2 job. But yeah, this was Devon Achane, man. 22 carries, 6 receptions on 6 targets, just running through the Buffalo Bills defensive line. So pretty good game from him. 40 burger, you'll take it. Miami's still playing with some heart, man. And that defense really stepped up on Sunday. Jacksonville and Houston. Frustrating one, just being a Jacksonville Jaguar fan, but Trevor Lawrence struggled in this one, especially in the second half, to move the ball. They were playing with a huge lead, and they kind of went into shell mode at the end of the game here, and they should have probably kept forcing it early in the third quarter to go get some points here, but they ended up not doing enough in the final seconds of the game. Lawrence actually had a huge 20-yard carry, and then he did have a nice hit. I think it was to Parker Washington for about another 15 to 20 yards to get them into field goal range. But penalty, of course, just traditional Jacksonville Jaguar stuff. A penalty knocks them out, and then Trevor Lawrence has the bad fumble 6 on the next play. So frustrating day from the Jags offense. ETN gets you there with his 16 carries and 3 receptions and a touchdown. Parker Washington's really good at football. Like, I think he might be a guy that they can continue to lean on throughout the rest of the season, even if Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter come back. Jacoby Myers got eased into this one, but he was still the number 3 receiver here. 3 targets, 3 catches, 7.1 fantasy points. Hopefully he'll continue to grow here. He should hop Tim Patrick next week in terms of receiving stuff. And then tight end, Brenton Strange is going to have his practice window opened up this week. He probably has a chance to play this week, but going forward, it's a tough matchup. They're going to get the Chargers at Jacksonville this weekend. You're going to still start ETN. Parker Washington's a wide receiver 3 flex. Brian Thomas Jr. is a wide receiver 3 flex. Jacoby Myers is a wide receiver 3 flex. And then maybe Brenton Strange is a low-end tight end 1 option if you need it. But not looking good. This was a very winnable game from the Jags. And they fumbled it at the end because of Davis Mills. Davis Mills was fantastic in this one. He goes for 27.5 fantasy points, gets the rushing touchdown to end the game. Woody Marks completely hopped Nick Chubb here, and they were trailing from this entire game. The Texans were down the entire game until the final minute, little 30 seconds of this game. So Woody Marks played a lot, ran a lot of routes. He did get 14 carries, caught a couple catches on his 3 targets. But he looks like the lead back going forward. I just don't think we're going to see Nick Chubb command a bunch of touches the rest of the year. They're going to continue to see what they can do with Woody Marks. Nico Collins finally gets unloaded here with 15 targets, 7 catches, 22.5 fantasy points here. He gets a 2-point conversion. Really sick one-handed snag there in the corner of the end zone. Had a huge 50-yard play at the end of the half. No touchdown, though. The touchdowns went to Jaden Higgins. They went to Dalton Schultz. Woody Marks got one. But better days are ahead for Nico Collins, man. Just wait till he gets those touchdowns rolling. But this is something to keep an eye on here. Jaden Higgins outsnapped Xavier Hutchinson and Christian Kirk. He also ran 26 routes. They're still mixing in Hutchinson, Kirk, and Higgins. That's very frustrating. But I believe this is one of the first times that I've seen Higgins play this much compared to some of the other guys. So he did have 7 targets on the day, 5 receptions, the big touchdown in the fourth quarter, and looks like a guy that could earn some more work here. So he's definitely a guy that's on the up and up. Jalen Noel didn't play a lot, but he did look good on his 4 targets, 4 catches. And then Dalton Schultz, I've continued to rank him pretty highly every week in my rankings. 11 targets, 7 catches, 18.3 fantasy points. Davis Mills, man, he really put this team on his shoulders and had a great second half of this game. So good for him. Good for the Texans to get this big win at home against a divisional opponent. We'll see if CJ Stroud's back. I think he's going to be back this week. All righty. Ravens Vikings, this is probably one of my least favorite games of the week. It was just kind of boring back and forth. A lot of fumbles from Minnesota, just a lot of bad turnovers on Minnesota's end. So Minnesota probably should have won this game, but the Ravens take it in Minnesota. Derrick Henry, 20 carries, 3 catches, only 11 fantasy points here. Justice Hill got the goal line touchdown in this game with 8.3 fantasy points. keep starting Henry. He's going to be fine. He'll get his touchdowns eventually. Lamar Jackson did not throw 2 touchdowns in this game, only 16.5 fantasy points here. Just a kind of a floor day for everybody. Zay Flowers got 11.5 fantasy points. Mark Andrews caught a touchdown. He got his 10 fantasy points. Isaiah likely continues to play a good amount as their number 4 target. And then Rashad Bateman did get hurt. I think he had an ankle thing. He caught a 2-point conversion, whatever. We don't really care about Rashad Bateman in fantasy right now. So didn't really learn anything from the Ravens. Lamar, Henry, Flowers, Andrews, keep using those guys. I do want to see more Keaton Mitchell, though. He looked pretty good on some of his carries. So we'll watch for him. He could be a fun stash. I also think likely could be stashed just in case Mark Andrews misses any time. Minnesota Vikings, man, again, J.J. McCarthy struggled to throw the ball deep in this one. He threw 2 deep ball interceptions. I think both were targeting Justin Jefferson, who had a floor game of 7.5 fantasy points. It was Jalen Naylor who was making the big plays for J.J. McCarthy. He ends up with 23.5 fantasy points. Just everything else was not good. Addison, only 6 fantasy points. TJ Hawkinson is not a starting tight end for fantasy football right now with JJ McCarthy. He really hasn't been in any of the games that we've seen McCarthy play. It was Aaron Jones, 16 fantasy points here, looking good on his rushing attempts and his few receptions. Jordan Mason got a little bit of work here, but it's Aaron Jones's backfield now that he's healthy. McCarthy got you there with his legs at the end of the game. He threw a touchdown to Jalen Naylor, but I have a lot of questions here. This was a tough home loss for the Vikings in a game where I think they had 3 total turnovers, 2 for McCarthy, 1 on special teams, in a very winnable game too. Like I said, the Ravens didn't exactly play all that well. Just the Vikings played worse, taking care of the football. So I have a lot of questions on Minnesota. We'll see if McCarthy can pick it up, but they're going to get the Bears, I believe, in Minnesota this weekend. So big divisional game coming up for them. Browns, Jets, I do not want to talk about this game, but we have to do it. Jerry Jeudy, 12 targets, 6 catches, and 20 fantasy points. He might be back into the wide receiver 3 mix. I mean, if Dylan Gabriel is going to get 20 fantasy points and throw the ball 32 times, maybe throwing to the wide receivers is finally on the menu. You also get Cedric Tillman back, who steps right back into his number 2 role for snaps and routes. He's a deep stash play. Not using him in fantasy quite yet, but it's good to see him back and healthy through a full game. And then the tight ends, Fannin gets his 7 targets. Njoku gets the 2 targets. He just gets a touchdown on his one of his. That's the engine of this passing game. And then Judkins, man, to get 22 carries, 2 receptions. This is the Derrick Henry line where you get 24 touches and you get 10 fantasy points without a touchdown. You're happy with that. You'll take your double-digit floor from Quinshon Judkins. So the Browns offense perking up, I suppose. If the Jets don't get a punt return and a kick return for a touchdown, the Browns win this game. So it's not only do they get both of those things, but just to even get like one of those things would have been a rare treat in the NFL these days, but they get a punt and a kick return here. So I didn't really learn anything from the Browns, just maybe Jeudy, Gabriel throwing the ball. That's a positive step after the bye week here. Jets, we're just going to crumple this one up and forget about it. Breece Hall gets a big receiving touchdown on the day, a huge catch and run, 21 carries for Breece Hall. Isaiah Davis kind of took a back seat in this one. He completed 4 passes. Is that right? 4 passes were completed. 9 targets on the day here. This is not a passing pie for the Jets. And again, they got the 2 special teams touchdowns, so they didn't really have to do much. They just ran the ball a ton. But this is one of the worst offenses in the entire NFL. We also lost Garrett Wilson for 3 to 4 weeks, which I'm going to just say he's out for a month. And I guess for fantasy football purposes, he might be out the rest of the fantasy football regular season. So tough day from the Jets offense. They get a win, a really ugly win. You're going to keep starting Breece Hall. After that, go pick up Adonai Mitchell, I suppose. And I believe this is the last noon game of the day. The Patriots, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Terrell Jennings started this game. He gets hurt, leaves after 5 snaps, and then we get the Travion Henderson breakout game. 14 rushing attempts, 1 catch, 2 long touchdowns for 28 fantasy points. Drake May actually struggled in this one. He had a 72-yard touchdown pass to Kyle Williams, who caught basically a 20-yard crosser and ended up just running the ball downfield for the touchdown untouched. So that was a huge play from Kyle Williams. But if that didn't happen, Drake May struggled in this one. A lot of it was the rain. early on. This game was a heavy rainstorm day, but May does enough to get the win. He was dealing with Mac Hollins. He completed a lot of passes to Mac Hollins and Stephon Diggs in this one. The tight end, Hunter Henry, had 4 targets, only 1 catch. Demario Douglas hardly used in this one. Just big plays when he needed it. I'll give that to Drake May. He was inconsistent, but again, a lot of that was from the rain. And then we finally got the Henderson breakout. We're going to get the Patriots and the Jets on Thursday Night Football. We'll see about Ramondre Stevenson and Terrell Jennings, but it looks like TreVeyon Henderson, strap up, buddy. We're going to get you another 15 to 20 touches on Thursday Night Football. Look ready, buddy. You're going to keep starting Drake May, Hendo, Diggs. If Booty's out, man, Mac Hollins might be kind of fun to start one more time. And then Hunter Henry's just a true, flexy, questionable decision there for us. All right, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, man, despite not having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, the 2 best players in the last few years from Tampa Bay, Emeka Egbuka, Tez Johnson, both over 20 fantasy points, 3 combined touchdowns from Baker Mayfield here. Mayfield's just good, man. And despite them losing this game, he's a really good passing quarterback. Cade Otton, 12 targets, 9 catches to lead the team. Egbuka had 13 targets, only 6 catches. If we got a little bit more consistent there, this might have been a different outcome. They also missed an extra point, I believe, which kind of changed how things went early on. But you're going to keep starting Egbuka. Tez Johnson's kind of like Troy Franklin at this point for me. I have trust and confidence in him, and clearly Baker Mayfield does too, throwing 2 big touchdowns. Cade Otton is now a tight end 1 flex streamer. And then Bucky Irving, man, this does not sound good. Like this shoulder injury in the toe or the foot, he is not taking contact yet. I'm going to list him as doubtful here. And right now the Buccaneers are using Rachaad White and Sean Tucker evenly as runners with the rushing attempts. Rashad's going to get the passing down work here. So you're going to keep playing Rachaad White as a low-end RB2, but Tucker's starting to get a little bit more interesting as long as Bucky Irving remains out. So tough home loss here for Tampa Bay. Not everything went their way. And again, some big time, like a 72-yard chunk touchdown from Kyle Williams, 2 long Henderson touchdowns here. We'll chalk this up as just not their day at the office, and we'll see if they can go beat Buffalo next weekend. All right, Arizona Cardinals. Jacoby Brissett gets there on fantasy points. Was not an efficient first half at all for this team. Marvin Harrison, 3 catches on 12 targets. We love the targets, but we got to get better with those targets here. Only 3 catches. He does get a touchdown. He almost had another touchdown. It was just inches from being secured, and then it got pushed out by the defender. But we'll take that. 12 points from Marvin. It was just another Trey McBride day. 9 catches on a team high, 13 targets, 28 fantasy points. Congrats if you ended up with Trey McBride as your tight end 1 this season. Michael Wilson is still there as the number 3 target, 7 targets, 4 receptions on the day. Greg Dortch is fine. We did lose Zay Jones. He tore his Achilles in this one. So if you need somebody, I guess Michael Wilson is just the easy number 2 for this offense with Jacoby Brissett. And then they have a full 50-50 split with the running backs. They're going to split snaps and routes pretty much down the middle. Bam Knight led the team with 10 rushing attempts. DeMercado got 4 rushing attempts, and he had 3 catches on 3 targets. Ends up with a huge 50-some yard run, not a touchdown, just a huge run. He gets there on points. I just don't have a lot of faith in these running backs. I want to see Trey Benson practice next week, and maybe we'll get that and get some clarity on this backfield. But for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, I don't know if he's going to play another down for this team. I think if Brissett's out there, I like Marvin. I like Trey McBride. Let's see if we can get Trey Benson back on this team. And oh my goodness, this Seattle Seahawks win. Very weird game. Like one of the most disappointing offensive performances that I can remember here, but they blew them out. Like they had the 2 defensive touchdowns. They're getting turnovers. They're doing all this stuff. Jackson Smith-Njigba still gets his 20 fantasy points. You'll take that. Cooper Kupp made a couple big catches. But then the running backs, all of them got work. Kenneth Walker, 14 carries. Zach Charbonnet, 14 carries. George Holani closed this one out and also got a rushing touchdown because they just don't want to give Kenneth Walker rushing touchdowns this year. We have to find every way possible to make sure he doesn't get in the end zone. But anyways, the running game was good. 46 rushing attempts on the day. This game was over pretty much in the second quarter, and they were able to just kind of coast. Only 10 completions for Sam Darnold in this one, who did have a couple turnovers. I think he had an interception and a fumble, under 5 fantasy points. So my bad, man. We had Sam Darnold ranked as a top 10, top 12 QB this week, and I still think it was the right process. We got 2 defensive touchdowns early from Seattle, and that really just changed the game completely. So didn't learn anything here. Rashid Shaheed did step in as the number 4, 8 routes on the day, only 1 reception on 1 target. He did get a couple rushing attempts. So there'll be bigger days for Rashid Shaheed starting in week 11. So not much to learn here in this game. Rams 49ers. Nothing really to learn here either. I mean, they're splitting carries, though, with Kieran and Blake Corum, pretty much down the middle now. 14 for Kyron, 13 for Blake Corum. Corum remains a high priority handcuff stash for me. Kieran does get 2 touchdowns in this one, 22 fantasy points. Matthew Stafford's just chucking touchdowns, man. He ended up, I think, with 4 touchdowns on the day, another 4. I think 1 to Puka, 1 to Devontae. I think Kobe Parkinson caught 1, and then maybe Davis Allen. I can't remember. But just Matthew Stafford, vintage Matthew Stafford performance here, just touchdowns galore, controlling the offense. They blew the 49ers out, and it was not close as the score got a little bit closer at the end. So we didn't learn anything here. Puka remains dominant. Devontae Adams did pull up with a back thing. We'll watch for that on Wednesday. He might not be able to go in week 11, so that's a big one. And then this tight end carousel, it's magnificent here. They're running 4 dudes, and these guys combined for 14 targets. They combined for 10 catches, 2 touchdowns. Like, that's a huge part of their offense right now that I think teams are struggling to figure out, because they can run the ball with these 2 tight end stuffs and the 3 tight end stuff. And then, yeah, you have to defend Puka and Devontae, and teams just can't do that right now. So the Rams, one of the most exciting offenses in fantasy football right now. 49ers, we're not going to learn too much from this one. McCaffrey, 8 catches on the day. Mac Jones gets you there in super flex leagues with his 23. I don't know what's going on with Brock Purdy, man. They don't want to play him. I don't know. It's very strange. So if you have Mac Jones, you want to hold on to him while we're getting this Brock Purdy stuff. But either way, Mac Jones can keep the offense afloat. McCaffrey gets 17 points. Brian Robinson looked okay on some of his touches, getting a rushing touchdown late in the game. Juwan Jennings, a touchdown for him, 17 fantasy points. He's the only competition for wide receiver stuff right now. Kendrick Bourne's kind of fallen off. Demarcus Robinson, whatever. But George Kittle, an efficient 9 receptions on 9 targets and a touchdown. That touchdown was sick, too. He catches the ball on the sideline and is able to kind of tightrope his way and lunge for it. So impressive touchdown there. And then Luke Farrell also caught a touchdown. Mac Jones with 3 TDs on the day. Good game in the box score. Just, it wasn't close. It just was not particularly close. They just could not keep up with the Rams, who it seemed like they were 2 to 3 touchdowns ahead the entire game. So I did see Ricky Pearsall was going to practice this week. Brock Purdy maybe too. So we'll see. The 49ers, the season probably feels like it's lost, but you're going to get 2 of your best offensive assets back this week, hopefully. Lions Commanders, this was a bit of a silly game here. Jahmyr Gibbs just dominated, 38 fantasy points on 18 touches. That's insane. That's over 2 fantasy points per touch. Jared Goff was flawless in this one with his 25 points and his 3 passing touchdowns. 1 to Jameson, 1 to Amon-Ra, 1 to Jahmyr Gibbs, if I remember correctly, but I can't remember if that was true. Sam Laporta had a floor game of 10 fantasy points. This is the same old Lions, man. David Montgomery is kind of the odd man out some weeks here, but you're still going to start Goff, Gibbs, Jameson, Amon-Ra, Laporta, and then Monty is more of like an RB3 for me, a top 30 flex. So you don't feel great about him every week, but if he gets a touchdown, you're going to like your score. So Lions roll in Washington. Didn't really learn much. Still not really playing Isaac Tesla. Khalif Raymond is the number 3 over him. Commanders, what did we learn here? Debo still going to make plays. Zach Ertz is still going to make plays. Treylon Burks was number 2 receiver for this team, so that's one to note. He completely hopped Jalen Lane, Chris Moore, Robbie Chosen, whatever. But this is Debo. They already ruled out Terry McLaurin for week 11. This season's going nowhere fast. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt might be the lead back next week, even though Chris Rodriguez hopped him in week 10. Rodriguez left, I think, with a shoulder injury. I don't really want to start Commanders at this point. You can start Mariota in Superflex leagues. If Rodriguez is out, you can maybe start Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. keep starting Debo and consider Zach Ertz. But man, this is pretty depressing. A once promising Commanders 2025 season has quickly deflated. And then the Steelers, that was a awful outing last night from this team. I think in all three phases, honestly. Rodgers was not sharp. Receivers were not sharp. The defense was not good. Turnovers, they just kind of didn't show up. Jaylen Warren looked good. He had a cool hurdle. That was the play of the night for the Steelers. Roman Wilson made a garbage time touchdown. But at this point, are we starting DK Metcalf? His floor looks pretty scary right now, 6 fantasy points. I'm going to keep starting Jaylen Warren. You can consider Rodgers in super flex leagues, but I'm pushing DK Metcalf down to wide receiver 3 flex territory. I'm not starting a tight end here because they use 3, sometimes 4 of them. I don't really know what this team is trying to do. They have a tough matchup this weekend. Who do they play? They're going to get the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's going to be good for the fantasy offense. If they can't get it done against the Bengals, then we're going to have our worries here. So you're going to keep starting Warren, Metcalf, and you could probably start Rodgers in Superflex leagues, but pretty big bummer of a game. Kenneth Gainwell got some late touches and some late routes there at the end of the game, but didn't really learn much. Just we're going to hopefully forget about that game and move on. And then the Chargers here, we did lose Oronde Gadsden halfway through this game. He was leading the team, I think, in targets at the time. Sounds like he's going to be okay. Not a major injury. They're calling him day to day. He had a little bit of a knee thing, but I think everything turned up okay. I think it was just a bruise is what they're saying. So good news for Gadsden owners. This was the McConkey big plays, big timely plays when they needed him. Only 4 catches, but one was for a huge touchdown. Also had a long catch and run. Congrats to Keenan Allen on the Chargers all-time receiving record for receptions. Bad fantasy night for Keenan Allen, but a huge milestone nonetheless. And then Quentin Johnston, after that goose egg a couple of weeks ago, they're making it a point to keep him involved. 9.2 fantasy points. Like, I'd rather keep playing Quentin Johnston than DK Metcalf at this point. And then the Chargers were just able to run the ball. Kamani Vidal, 25 carries, 18 points. Justin Herbert didn't really have to do much in this one. He did throw the ball 30 times, but a lot of it was dink and dunk kind of stuff here. The offensive line still in flux, but good, solid performance at home from the Chargers. Again, didn't really learn much. Hopefully going to get Amari and Hampton back week 13, and then we can figure some things out. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I'm going to I don't know what is going on up there. But either way, I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me this evening. Enjoy the Packers-Eagles game tonight. My money's always going to be on the Packers. We'll see if we can figure it out tonight to stop Jalen Hurts. But I'll go live tomorrow night on the Waiver Wire program, 7 o'clock Central Time. Join me then. And good luck, guys. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll see you tomorrow evening. Peace.